And 3, 2, 1, and we are live. Welcome everybody to Cowboy Metals live stream here on the channel 𝙎𝙊𝙇𝘍.com. It's your host Robert Keats, and it is September 13, 2022, 5:30 p.m. Central Time as usual. Welcome everybody to the program. Do a quick sound check as always. Sound looks good, guys. Everybody, we have a poll up for you, and the poll is: does the current silver run in London mean anything? Answers are silver shortages in 3, 2, 1. Nope, they have a lot more hidden and therefore can put it back on the market. Or not sure, but it looks good. We'll have to see what goes on. You guys answer the question in the poll if you don't mind. Welcome everybody to the program. We have Peter riding shotgun and the 4x4 F-150 as usual. Thank you, Peter, to the program. Welcome everybody else to the program. I see Alex Wright in here, William Sorensen, Pat BFD, John Black, Joseph S, along with lots of other people. And I think at one point we had a Chris sighting from Arcadia Economics. Maybe he'll pop up again there in the chat. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. Everybody, welcome to the program. Today, we're going to be talking about the London crisis. The LBMA is now reporting a big silver liquidation. Well, what's been happening in the COMEX? It's been silver liquidation. And now we're seeing the same thing in London. Hate to beat a dead horse and repeat myself, but we did talk about this, on Chris's channel and in the community during Silver Squeeze about a year and a half ago. We said it would happen. All of us said it would happen, and it is happening. The running silver off. The question is who, what, when, where, how, and why. That's what we want to know. Well, we're going to get to the bottom of some of that during this presentation, although definitely not all of it. There are still questions yet left to be answered, ladies and gentlemen, but let's get straight into the presentation because that's why you guys are here. Oh, before I do, a couple of housekeeping notes. Number one, we are going to be adding something to the channel either Sunday evening or Monday. We're going to A/B test it and see what does better. I'm going to do a market report. It's going to be like a 10-minute video every week. Talks about what's happening in gold and silver, talks about what's happening in the economy, a little bit of review from previous week and preview for the new one. That'll be out on the channel. It'll be a short, usually 8 to 12 minutes. You guys can absorb that over a cup of coffee in the morning or on your way to work if you wish. Also, in addition to that, adding that additional free content, we are going to do a little membership option here at YouTube. The reason being is a lot of people have said, how can we support you? And we don't have any sort of donation strategy. We don't have a membership. We tried Patreon at one point, but we didn't want to have it off platform. So we've decided to roll out YouTube memberships. It's open now if you guys want to join. The first tier basically is just supporting the channel and you get some custom badges and things. The second one is where I'm going to do a special presentation once every couple of weeks, maybe every week. In fact, I'll probably do it every week to start. It's going to be called Gold, Silver, Pros Unplugged. And as you can imagine, I'll be talking about a lot of things that I can't necessarily talk about publicly or that I think would be better kept in a more private format. So if you guys are interested in that, join the channel and join that tier. That'll probably be, like I said in the beginning, once a week. We're going to talk about things that are going on in the economy. I'm going to make some bold calls there, but I'm also going to get more into the speculative end of things. You guys love me on the channel because I do the data and the research, but we're going to take that data and research and we're going to take it to another level. And I'm going to start synthesizing a lot of this and going over that in the Unplugged segment. So if you're interested, again, that membership is there. Now, again, nothing changes with the free channel. We're actually adding a bit of free content to Sunday and Mondays with the Market Watch. We'll still do the lives on Tuesdays and either additional research piece or interview this Thursdays. And this coming Thursday, I'm going to be doing an interesting roundtable you guys will want to pay attention to. All right, that's the housekeeping for today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into the presentation. We're going to talk about London and what's going on there. Where is all this silver going? My goodness. Well, our friend Ronan Manley is on the beat as he usually is with the UK market from Bullion Star. We'll get to his article that started all of this when it came out a little while ago. I'm here right now at Gold Charts RS. This is Nick Laird's site that I use all the time. Wonderful information. And here you can see is a graph of LBMA London Silver Holdings. And as you can see, there has been a precipitous decline dating back to about the last quarter-ish or so of last year. There's been a huge decline in the holdings of silver in London. And not only that, but if you look at where most of the silver is held, it's in ETFs. ETF holdings is gray. The vast majority of the silver is there. I would say about all but about 10,000 ounces or 10,000 tons. 10,000 tons are other, 18,110 are ETFs. Now, that's a big difference from before the pandemic. Once we had the pandemic, most of these went into ETF holdings. People really were buying the passive investments and getting into the ETFs. And I'll show you what those are in a moment. While the physical was being drained from the free trade, or the float, if you will, of silver in the London market. So the free trading silver has come down at a time when the contributions to ETFs have gone up. We saw that at the beginning of silver squeeze, late January, early February of 2021, where people went into the SLV. Well, people are still going into those ETFs. And which ETFs are we talking about? We'll get there in just a moment. Before we do, I wanted to look at the daily average of basically transfers. A transfer in the London market is much like a delivery in the COMEX market, except for that it's usually bank to bank. So it's one bank trading with another bank, and there are less overall participants in that banks in that market, I believe, than in COMEX, if what I read on the LBMA's website is correct. So the bank-to-bank transfers are actually down. So even though there's been a lot of silver coming off of that London market, I think a lot of it's going to ETFs, but the actual transfers of the physical from broker to broker has not reached a high. It's just kind of sitting here higher than the average of the last 10 years, if you will, but not quite a high for the last few years. So still a lot of silver movement in London. Not all of it's flowing off exchange. Some of it is. Some of it's just trading back and forth between the houses, but there has been a runoff. Here are the ETFs that we're talking about. A bunch of these ETFs, not all of them, but a bunch of them store their silver in London. And Ronan Manley, on his article at Bullion Star, which is called London Silver Inventories Continue to Plummet. You can see it in the URL bar right here. You can just go to bullionstar.com and look up Ronan Manley. You'll find it. He mentions the ones that are specifically the largest ones that store in London, which is most of the ones that you're going to see on Nick's charts. I just wanted to confirm that. Most of these are in London, not all. But you can see the net depreciation or taking off of silver ounces. What does that mean? Well, in SLV alone, there have been redemptions, negative 16 million ounces in the last 4 weeks. Well, how do you get the silver out of SLV? It's an ETF. Not all people have exposure to physical. That's why a lot of people don't like SLV. Only authorized participants, and I believe I was told anybody that had more than 50,000 shares. So an AP, which are basically like the bullion makers in the COMEX market, similar in SLV, and also people with 50,000 shares. So the big guys, and the big guys are liquidating silver. So this is where you see silver coming out of iShares SLV, and it's basically part of what's being drained from London, because you can see this decline in ETF. So it's not just free silver going down to the ETFs and stored. No. It's free silver coming out of the London market, some of that going to ETFs, but now the ETFs are being drained. People are running silver not only out of COMEX, not only out of the London free silver, but they're draining it off the ETFs. That's a silver run, ladies and gentlemen, and that's not what we saw last time during Silver Squeeze. Silver Squeeze was much smaller than that. It was people buying into SLV, pushing up the price of silver. Now you see people redeeming shares of SLV to get the silver that they have access to. Certainly there's some retail selling, and they're not going to get the silver. But with this much selling in SLV, we know that some of that silver is coming off, because we can see it come off in London. And what is the biggest holder of London silver from the ETFs? It's the SLV. It's not these other ones. So if you're talking that much silver coming off of London, the ETFs right here, a lot of it has to be the SLV. The other ETFs don't hold as much. So SLV is being liquidated for silver. We can see that in the statistics. And we can also see the free silver coming out of London. I'm going to do a real quick sound check, guys, and I'll go back to the Prezzo. Sound is good. Glad everybody's here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Quick reset. This is September 13th, 2022. You're on goldsilverpost.com. I'm your host, Robert 𝙊𝙊𝙇𝘿. A 5:30 p.m. Cowboy Metals live stream where we broadcast from the great state of Texas. We take no bullshit and we tell you the truth. We're talking about the London crisis and the LBMA reporting a big silver liquidation. Let's get back into the program after I get a good itch on my head there. You can also see silver ETFs have fallen here in a specific chart where they just break out the ETFs, and that's what's causing silver price to come down, part of it. Now we talk about the COMEX's effect on price, the futures trade. What also tends to affect the silver price is redemptions or purchasing in SLV, because a lot of the market makers and the generalists, the paper buyers of silver in the market, follow SLV. So as SLV is being redeemed by authorized participants to take silver off of the market, as we can see here, and we can see in the ETF here, that puts downward price pressure on silver, which is why we've been seeing a gradual decrease in silver, because people think that there's less demand for SLV, but we know on the back end, it's to get inventory redemptions for APs and people with 50,000 or more shares. So they're actually draining silver off the market. It's not just generalists are wanting to buy SLV less, or they're selling it. People are liquidating, take silver off. So this is a liquidation event, which is different and opposite what we saw in Silver Squeeze in February 2021. Just wanted to make that point. And again, this is covered in more detail, Ronan's story. You can go to 𝙎𝙊𝙇𝙑𝙬𝙍. London silver inventories continue to plummet. That was September 11th, a couple of days ago. I'm going to expand a little bit upon what he said and use some additional data in what he said. We're going to take a little bit farther here, but I love Ronan. Always want to give him a shout out for his work. He covers the UK better than anybody. Just rely on him. He's the man. Okay. So we want to talk about where's that silver going to. So as Ronan points out, and we wanted to point out, India is taking a bunch of silver. Why? There are certain rules put into place with India and gold. Remember when they reset their currency. India in the last few years reset their currency. They put some capital and asset controls on gold. And so what happened was there was an expectation that instead of gold, people may go to silver because it may be cheaper to import. And that's exactly what's happening. That was a good call by the guys that noted that. James Anderson, SD Bullion, and Ronan Manley both cover that and are both, those are good shout outs to them. Go follow their channels. So you can see here, India silver imports have increased a lot. And if you look at the exports, they've gone up as well, but imports a lot. So people in India, a lot of trade back and forth in silver, but some of that is coming to India. Wanted to go back to the clearing data on the LBMA. This is on the LBMA's website. And here we can see the amount of volume transferred is up. Now it's not at a peak. Again, it's not at a peak. And that's what we saw before when we're looking at London silver. It's not at a peak in terms of flow, although a lot of it's coming off and it's precipitous. And we know it's at least some from the ETFs and some from the free silver. The value transferred is pretty good. The number of transfers is pretty good, but it's not at a peak. So we're not at peak runoff of London. I don't want to panic people and say that we're going to run out in a week or two like the threat was that would happen during a silver squeeze last year when the LBMA came out and said that. We're not quite there, but it is a big liquidation event. Why is that happening? Well, according to the business standard, investment demand to lift India silver imports to record high level. This came out in August, is about a month ahead of where the rest of the market caught it. India's silver imports, listen to this paragraph. India's silver imports are set to triple in 2022 from a year ago to record highs after a dip in prices to two-year lows, spurred investors to bet that the metal was primed for a rebound and could outperform gold in the coming years. What have we said about banker repositioning on the COMEX going long silver futures? Indian people are in the same spot as where the big four bullion banks are in COMEX. They expect silver to rise. People are starting to bet on the rise of silver, and we're talking entire nations and the bullion banks. People are getting wind of the silver story. Higher demand in India, the world's biggest silver consumer, could support global prices. This is why we've had a little bit higher silver this week. Silver's rising a little bit, even though there are redemptions in SLV because people are buying more physical. So you've got that paper, redemptions down, physical silver up, the futures down. Okay, so the derivative pricing over on this side is fighting the upward pressure on the physical price on this side. The derivatives are winning now, but eventually that physical silver trade will pop through. That's something I talked about, Silver Symposium, and I've talked about on the channel many times, how and when that will happen. So I won't go into detail here, but we'll talk about that again another time. It says here, investment demand has been boosting imports, said Chirag Thakur, CEO of Amrapali Group Gujarat, a leading silver importer. Investors are anticipating poor man's gold will beat gold in the coming years. India's silver imports in 2022 could jump to a record 8,200 tons, Thakur said. In the first 7 months of 2022, silver imports surged to 5,100 tons from just 110 tons during the same period a year ago. Let's say that again, shall we? In the first 7 months of 2022, silver imports in India surged to 5,100 tons from just 110 tons during the same period a year ago. So during the first 7 months of 2021, I was just 110 tons. Now it's literally 50 times that. That's ridiculous. Wow, huge change. In 2020 and 2021, Indian investors and industry sold off silver stocks after strong imports in 28 and 19. So they leverage, they deleverage, they're playing the prices. So who else could be taking silver off the markets? What are the other big importers? Well, if you go look up silver importers, on Google, it's really hard to piece this information together. You'll find it on exporters because it's what comes out of the mines and things like that. The import's a little bit harder. You got to follow different exchanges and different flows. Nobody really tabulates all that data in a ready available format, but we've got some clues and we're going to talk about some of those clues. So I'm here at the silverinstitute.org. You can see that here, talking about fabricators. Why would I look at fabricators? Because you're fabricating, that means you pulled some in. Okay, so you're importing some. So we know the United States is a big importer, and we know what's happening with the runoff in COMEX. People are draining that. Why? They need to refine. Okay, I'm going to show you China here in a moment. I've showed you India already, and then there's also Japan. It's really difficult finding Japanese import numbers for silver, other than the fact I found a bunch of stories saying they're importing a crap ton of it. There's nothing that gives me a chart. So I'm going to focus here on China, and then I'm going to give you some UK data. And then we're going to look again at what's happening in COMEX to wrap this up. All right. So I found an interesting chart here in Trend Economy. This is a report of silver imports to China. That's including silver plated with gold or platinum, any form of major silver. We can see that since 2009, we've had more than a doubling of silver imports, highlighted by 2017 and 2020. I unfortunately don't have 2021 data yet. 2022 obviously is not over, but we'll get that data soon. But you can see that China's importing more silver. Why? They need it. It's in everything. Solar panels is going to be the #1 in China. You're going to have EVs in there. You're also going to have the military. You're going to have tech applications. There's tons of tech work that goes on in China, and there's tons of silver in tech. And also China makes a lot of, for the world, they make a lot of supplies in medicine. And in medicine, they use a lot of this. So it makes sense China importing. They're taking it. I also suspect a big chunk of this 1.4 billion amount that's on this chart is going into China's individual need for investment demand, and also China stockpiling a little bit, although we don't have anything to show that. I also, from Nick Laird's site, wanted to show imports into the UK. So imports are solid into the UK, but haven't really exploded. They've been solid all year. You see an upward trend here. So the UK, more silver coming in, India, more silver coming in, China, more silver coming in. I'm not sure about Japan, and also silver being drained out of the depositories in the US to go to US trade and refinement. And if we want to know what that number is, of course, one of our channel moderators, Michael, has this report out every day. This is the latest one, COMEX Silver. You can see it's all in the red. 2 million ounces came out eligible, which is the long-term storage. 44,000 ounces came out of registered, which is the trading account. Vault totals down 2 million. And of course, we go back to Nick Laird's site and we see the overall amount of drain as well, 25 million ounces net from the COMEX and London through these ETFs over the last 4 weeks. So there is a big run on silver coming. I'm going to go back and do a real quick sound check, and then I'm going to chat with you guys that come on screen. Sound is good, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, we've got 433 people in. Is doing good. Remember, we have a poll, 138 votes. It's about 300 of you guys haven't voted yet. Does the current silver run in London mean anything? 41% of you so far, 138 votes say, yes, we're going to have silver shortages. 12% say no, there's more hidden under the surface. We don't know where, but it's there somewhere. And then 46% of you said not sure, but it looks good. So about 88% of you are fairly positive about this being positive for physical silver. I would agree with you. Everything's fine. Thank you, Peter, for giving me a quick sound check. You never know with YouTube and Zoom. Looks like everything's going well. Give you a real quick recap. We've been talking about ad nauseum the run on COMEX Silver. I predicted that on Chris's channel, and other people started talking about that last year since Silver Squeeze. We've been following it. That's what I call phase 2, which is the less obvious run on silver, where they're going to exchanges and through retail and various bazillion outlets to drain physical. Of course, we know the stackers are doing it from Wall Street Silver and Reddit and that crowd that follow us as well, our stackers. But now we start to see big people come in. We think a big billionaire in Texas has bought a lot of gold and silver, 50 million. We're seeing 3 million orders coming through our network, through Ark Silver. And we can see where there's been a big run on COMEX. And today, thanks to Ronan and some other charts from Nick, we can see where it's coming off of. London market precipitously. And again, also the ETFs. And here's the thing about the difference between the physical and the price trade. And this may be the most important thing I'm going to say on the program tonight. So I'm really going to emphasize it. When you have redemptions in SLV at the level that we're having them, and you see that ETF silver stock fall, in London at the same time, it means the people over here liquidating SLV for shares are pulling the physical out of the market that stores them. That is the London market, or the LBMA vaults. And you can see on both from SLV redemptions and drainage of London ETF stocks that we know that SLV authorized participants are taking silver off the market. They're draining physical. That actually has a downward effect on price because people see SLV as being a physical proxy or an ETF or a fund proxy for silver itself. So when the people go to pillage SLV to remove the physical silver, it will put downward market pressure on the silver price, explaining the recent silver price fall to about, what was it, 17 bucks or something. It's been rising to come back up because of the physical trade and because of the runoff that we've all been talking about. It's derivative markets fighting the physical markets, and we're going to have these big price swings, boom, ba boom, ba boom, as the good guys with the green lightsabers and the bad guys or the red lightsabers fight each other in this epic space saga that we call silver, physical silver. Made a little Star Wars reference there. I think that's what's going on. And what I said at the conference was, we're going to have a run on physical silver. They're draining it. It's obvious now. We have the data from the two largest physical markets in the Western world. We know what's going on with the physical. I think it's pretty obvious there's a run on silver. So I think we're getting closer to the explosive silver trade. A very prominent analyst that I follow out of the UK, who's on many channels and has been well known for many, many years in the gold and silver space, said in an email to me today, and I won't name the person because I didn't get permission, but they thought that participants on the SLV were gearing up to liquidate the SLV. And I agree, looking at the data. The data seems to confirm that that's what's going on. When you're pillaging the SLV, which is an investment designed to absorb silver demand away from the physical market, and when you start getting physical out of that market, that Ponzi system known as SLV is going to crash. So the fact that they're liquidating silver, which is going to eventually crash the SLV fund, tells me that we're in the final stage of that silver repositioning that's going on. Of course, we see that in the Commitment of Traders report from the CFTC. All that data from both markets, plus the retail demand that we talk about all the time, seems to be indicating run on silver, run on silver, run on silver. Phase 2, silver squeeze, going according to 𝙎𝙊, going according to plan. And like Hannibal says in the A-Team, you got to love it when a plan comes together, when we're seeing what's going on. Now, does that mean that silver is going straight to the moon? My comments on my why this time is different for gold and silver presentation that I've given several times is yes, but they're going to put upward circuit breakers on it. We know that because of what Ross and Benham said at 𝙬𝙬. I think they're trying to keep a lid on the silver market because they need it for industry, and it scares them if they have a run and prices go bonkers, because it could break a lot of things, because think of where silver is used. And so they're trying to manage that market. But it looks like people are pillaging underneath the physical inventories. Think of the physical inventories as the concrete and the foundation of your house. Everything above that's for show. But what's going to last in a tornado is that concrete foundation, not, the sticks and the bricks on top of it. And so really your foundation in silver is the physical. And that physical foundation is being worn out from underneath by the banks and other authorized participants that are draining it from the markets. And probably on behalf of some of their clients are probably users of merchants and sovereigns, and everybody's in there cleaning out silver. When you see that happen, that foundation's being eaten, that house is going to fall down. So the silver house and the pricing schemes and mechanisms eventually will fall. And we're seeing that with what's going on underneath the market. And you can see it if you look, and you know where to look, and you understand how those markets work. You definitely can see it. All right, I'm looking for questions. I don't see any super chats. Reminder, super chats are open. Feel free to jump on a super chat if you want. If you have questions, throw it down there in the chat, and I probably will see it. And while we wait for you guys to put in your questions, as I know that you're eagerly doing that right now, I'm going to talk about our affiliation with Ark Silver. Of course, I do this on every presentation. You go to goldsilverpros.com. This is our website. Click on Precious Metals Deals. Click right here where it says Access Deals underneath Ark. You get the form. This goes to Ian. Make sure you whitelist his phone number here and his email address here. He'll contact you back in 48 hours. He gets silver and gold cheaper than just about everybody on the planet. He's not going to get you every corner bar that you could think of. He's going to go out there on his 5 and 6 wholesalers, and he's going to find the cheapest silver he can in whatever denomination, in whatever form, and he's going to bring it to you So that may be where you want to get it, because it may be hard to get it elsewhere. And we know that premiums as a percentage of silver price are at an all-time high that we've ever known them to be. So getting low premium silver at a time when there's a big squeeze going on and people are sucking it out, you're going to want to do that now. I don't think you have too much longer. I know I've been saying for 2 years, people say I'm a broken record, but look at what's happened. We're draining silver inventories. We covered Perth Mint, basically leasing it out and maybe bailing somebody else out, and all the schemes that are going on there. Reference our videos. We talked about COMEX and now the LBMA. We talked about phase 2 of silver squeeze the last year and a half of what would happen. That's what's happening. So that's what you're seeing. Going to the questions, Alex Wright says, what about dollar milkshake theory affecting the price of silver to the downside? It could. As the dollar index strengthens, remember, that's not the strength of the dollar in purchasing power in inflationary terms. It's just the strength of the dollar against everything else, that other basket of 4 or 5 other currencies. I forget what they are. Chinese yuan, pound, and all that stuff. Yes, as the dollar index goes up, it could weaken the metals in the short term. Miss Shedlock on his website did a good piece of research about how silver and gold prices are not correlated to the DXY long term, but over the short term they can be, because the perception is when the DXY goes up, the dollar index goes up, everything else should go down and have a negative effect on counter trades to the dollar. That doesn't always occur over long periods of time, but the thought process it does over short periods of time. Thank you for the question. I did not say analyst, John, but good question. And yes, I did actually write that on here because I thought it was funny. All right, going through, looking for some other questions. Martin Lee says, definitely silver shortages. Keep loading up the best insurance. I agree with you, Martin Lee. That is a good comment. Thank you so much. Other questions, ladies and gentlemen? John Black says, it's just hard to crack paper with paper. Yes, it is. That's why I don't invest in paper silver or the SLV. Although, think about what happened to SLV. There's been a run up in number of shares, and now the big guys are draining it. So there was a method to the madness. The only way you can drain SLV is to be one of the big boys on there and redeem shares, and they're doing it. If you're little guys, you couldn't do it. It wasn't going to happen, and that apparently is what's happening. Arcadia Economics asks, what are your thoughts on how we have seen lower silver inventories for a few times in the past decade? I think that we've had lower silver inventories, and I think that at times there were silver inventories that came into the market. When you follow the U.S. Geological Society, USGS, they noted how we used to have a big above ground inventories in a lot of places, and those have been drained. And because now this time is different with the miners running yearly shortages for the last 4 years, it's not as though the miners are running surpluses that we can build those back up. So over the last 2 to 3 decades, maybe we had some mining surpluses to build that back up. Now we don't. So really what I think it is, we're now down to the nitty gritty in terms of 4 straight years of mining shortages over physical demand. People are starting to pillage SLV, the COMEX in London. Is there one big last repository of silver that's above ground, already mined, that we don't know about? JP Morgan is reputed to have 1 billion ounces, although I think the last time I looked on the inventory report, it was like 150 or something, 130 last time I looked. Publicly, they hold a lot less. If they have 1 billion ounces, that gives you about a year's worth of supply. And as Ronan pointed out, in London, you have a lot less than a year's supply. You have about a third of a year. And a COMEX out of go and look, but it's not even close to that. So if there's something out there hidden that we don't know about, yes, they could dump silver one last time. We don't know where it is. When we track it, when Ronan tracks it, and Alistair tracks it, and I look at it, and we look at the publicly available information, Silver Institute, Metals Focus, there could be something somewhere, but it's like we feel like we've uncovered a bunch of rocks. But you never know. I mean, sometimes crazy stuff happens. Maybe there's a Grand Canyon of silver somewhere and we just don't know it. It's entirely possible. Good question, Chris. I appreciate you. All right, guys, I think this is going to about do it. We're going to close the poll. 43% of you said yes, silver shortages. 45% say not sure, but it looks good. The other 12, no, they have more hidden. If you guys know of silver or gold that could be hidden and you've got stories, email them to me, robert@goldsilverpros.com. I'll definitely do that research. I dig everywhere for metals. I want to know where the metals is at. So if you know, let me know, and we'll jump on it, and we'll get that reported out to you. But from the smartest people in the business, the best data that we have, looks like run is on, run is on, run is on. We'll see what happens and how long this lasts. We'll cover it. When does this come to fruition? Again, we don't know. There's a lot hidden behind the surface or beneath the surface, behind the scenes, the man in the curtain. But is he the man in the curtain in the Wizard of Oz, or is it a guy standing on a stool pulling levers? Or is there something really substantive back there? I think it's a guy pulling levers. And I think this curtain is going to get revealed, but we'll see. We'll see if that prediction comes true or not. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up. We've been chatting here for about 30 minutes. This has been a great one, almost 500 in the stream. I know there's a lot of interest in silver. This is a really good, timely report about reporting the big silver liquidation in London after we've been talking about the runoff in COMEX, and it deserved its own episode. Coming up later in the week, we're going to have a roundtable on Thursday with some good friends to talk about gold, but especially silver. A lot going on in the silver market. Remember, this Sunday night, Monday morning, we're going to do my market report. That's a new piece that you guys will see every week. And remember, if you're interested, you can now support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel at 2 membership levels. There is an inexpensive level, which is just support for what we already do, and a more expensive level, you will see me unplugged. And I can guarantee you, when I do those videos for members only, we're going to have a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff I don't say here that I can say there, and I'm going to start synthesizing some of these ideas and give you the bigger picture. And we're going to make that real. We're going to do some real-time live streams in there where you guys can interact with me and I'll answer your questions. And we're going to go high-end speculation or high-octane speculation in that members only video. We're going to talk about stuff I won't put here because it's not research. Well, it's not research. It's research based. We'll keep the research here. We're not changing the regular channel, but that option is there for you. Thank you guys so much. Till next time, this is Rob 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙍, Gold Silver Pros. Keep on stacking.